Hi, how are you?
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Basement Boys FIFA 22 Career Mode. I'm your host, Mr. Basement, and today we'll be taking over Crystal Palace in a bid to turn the South London outfit into a European juggernaut. We'll be doing a season per episode where I'll show you guys the highlights from our key games, new transfers, stats, and everything else you'll need to take part in the journey. I'd love it if you guys would leave a like, or even a comment telling me what you'd like to see next, or where I can even improve. But with that out of the way, let's jump right into the action. After meeting members of the media and posing with the shirt, it was time for Mr. Basement to officially take his post and begin work as the new boss of Crystal Palace. After looking at the squad, the new boss decides to shake things up, moving the team to a 4-4-1-1 formation. The tactics slightly more offensive, seeing a center forward slot in just behind the striker. With his playstyle decided, Mr. Basement was ready to dive into the transfer market and get the Eagles ready for liftoff. Transfer dealings start quickly, with the sale of the big Belgian Christian Benteke to Valencia for £5.3 million. Then, Jordan Ayew would follow suit with a £5 million move to Borussia Mönchengladbach, before seeing veteran James Tompkins depart for Spain in a £2.5 million move to Deportivo Alaves. Now, with some of the lesser-rated players out of the way, it was time to bring in some fresh faces. Eric Peters joins first, with the veteran left-back swapping Lancashire for London in a £1.8 million move, but that wasn't all on the agenda, as Bertrand Traore makes his way to South London in a £13.5 million move from Aston Villa, with an additional 5% going to the West Midlands club in the event of another sell-on. Pleased with his first bits of business, it was time for the boys to kick off their Premier League campaign. Our season opens with a trip across the River Thames to Stamford Bridge as we take on the blue side of West London. Speaking of, the boys felt rather blue in the opening 20 minutes of the game, practically handing the home side a 2-0 lead thanks to a Timo Werner brace. Normally, that wouldn't feel as bad if he didn't score a total of 4 Premier League goals in real life this season, but who's counting? However, fortunes would quickly turn for the Basement Boys as our main man up front, Odson Osei Can-You-See Edouard, picking Tony Rudiger's pocket from a goal kick, then rifling a goal beyond Edouard Mendy, and the boys were officially back in business. But just before the break, we almost conceded yet another sloppy goal. But it wasn't to be for the home side as the ball trickled out of bounds to keep the game within 1 at the break. Chelsea would continue that pressure into the second half with a couple of chances troubling our Spanish stopper, but then Eberechi Eze whipped a brilliant ball into the box, placing it perfectly on the forehead of Wilfried Zaha, who nodded home to level the scoreline. We continued to assert our dominance towards the end of the game, putting the Chelsea goal under consistent pressure throughout the half, and a bit of hard luck for Jean-Philippe Mateta, who has his initial effort saved before smashing the rebound off the post late in the 90th minute, sees us squander a couple of points in the 2-2 opening draw. After the tough draw, we decide to make another couple of moves on the market. First, we bring in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain from Liverpool, on loan, with an option to buy for around about $15 million. We're hoping he provides some added athleticism in the middle of the park, alongside our newest permanent fixture, Conor Gallagher, whose services we secured from Chelsea for about $20 million, adding him to the squad for the next 5 years on less than $50K a week wages. And with that, the summer window shuts, and we move on to our next round of fixtures, hoping to continue our climb up the Premier League table. We get started with another away trip, this time to Merseyside, to take on the Reds of Liverpool. And the game, once again, starts poorly for the boys, conceding in the opening 5 minutes after a pinballed effort found the foot of Bobby Firmino, who made no mistake in his finish. And it wasn't long after the opener that we found our own way back into the game. Ox and Gallagher combined brilliantly, opening the door for Jean-Philippe Mateta, who slots home his side foot effort, leveling the score at 1. That goal allowed us to grow into the game, but so too did Liverpool stopper Alisson, who produced save after save after save to keep the game level and the Eagles desperate for more. The boys were then handed another lifeline, as a couple of reckless challenges saw Sergio Canales sent off almost as quickly as he was brought on, and our pressure would continue to mount until the final kicks of the game, when new man Bertrand Traore latched onto a lofted through ball, beat Joe Gomez for pace, and rocketed his shot beyond the reach of Alisson, wheeling away in celebration. That goal earned us an important 3 points away from home against a certain title contender. Following the late heroics at Anfield, we head over to the Emirates to take on the Gunners. Arsenal start fast, as is the theme with this group, but Joachim Andersen does brilliantly to put his body on the line and ensure the game stayed scoreless in the early going. Vincente Guaita also puts in quite the shift during the first half, flinging himself left, right, and center to ensure the Gunners checked themselves at the door. And while the game should have been out of reach, it wasn't, and that allowed for Wilfried Zaha to add yet another goal to his early season tally. Then the Ox grabbed his first goal in a Palace shirt, as the young bull used his pace to barrel through the heart of the Arsenal defense, before calmly rolling the ball into the back of the net, doubling the advantage for the traveling Eagles. Things started to get a little chippy as Martin Odegaard hacked down Conor Gallagher from behind, sending him away for an early shower. But the boys were unrelenting, as Zaha once again used his dribbling prowess to beat a man and score before running to the away end to let everyone know that he is in fact the man in London. Hudson-Odoi puts the cherry on top of proceedings, muscling his way into the box before putting an emphatic end to the game, as Mr. Basement and his crew grab all of the spoils in yet another fruitful away journey. With a quarter of the season gone, we find ourselves near the foot of the table, 2 points from safety. Fans in the media seem less than thrilled, but an even-keeled, near-monotone Mr. Basement tries to put everyone at ease before a game against Wolves at Selhurst Park. In that game, Vicente Guaita was forced to play the role of hero yet again, as a pack of Wolves' chances get parried away by the veteran netminder. Conor Gallagher then produces a goal of the season contender in the 29th minute, as the Englishman finds himself on the end of a through ball, takes it down, and delicately lifts it over the head of Jose Sa and into the back of the net. The new boy showed his appreciation of the Palace faithful with a few high fives and fist bumps, as the Basement boys begin their ascent up the table with a 1-0 victory. Flying high after a couple of wins, Villa come to town, and they quickly make us feel less like Eagles and more like Icarus, as Mark Guehi brings down Ollie Watkins in the box and finds himself in the books. Matthias Pereira steps up and fires home the penalty, giving the visitors an early 1-0 lead. And while things were very ugly for Palace, this second strike from Matthias Pereira was certainly pretty enough for the Louvre, and more than good enough to double the lead for the Villains. Ollie Watkins would later take his revenge, curling one from beyond the box and beyond the outstretched hands of Vicente Guaita. And finally, to make matters worse, Tyrone Mings would add a fourth. His header somehow snuck beyond our keeper and over the line, effectively clipping our wings. Jean-Philippe Mateta would bag a consolation goal, but that wasn't enough to wash the shame away of a 4-1 defeat, leaving the Eagles to lick their wounds. Looking to correct course, Palace take a trip to Ellen Road to face Leeds. And it wasn't long before the Eagles took flight, with Bertrand Traore opening the scoring with a tasty chipped finish, and then Hudson-Odoi followed up with a goal in the 37th minute. It looked like the boys were cruising to an easy win, until Rafinha and Patrick Bamford breached our defenses, scoring twice in 10 minutes to equalize. Then up popped Jean-Philippe Mateta when we needed him most, bullying his man on his way into the box, before firing low beyond Meslier. Things only got brighter for the boys when thrilling Willy Zaha went on a magical run through the Leeds defense, waltzing his way to a left-footed finish, killing off the game. And the Eagles were once again soaring ahead of a homecoming against Derby County in the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. With the light shining bright at Selhurst Park, the Rams and the Eagles took center stage in a knockout round clash. The game started well for Palace, knocking on the door with 2 early warning shots. But after a costly error from Cheikh Kouyaté, Palace loanee Luke Plange pounced on a loose ball and opened the scoring in the 36th minute. Didn't end there for the Senegalese defender, with yet another botched clearance seeing itself cannon into the path of Tom Lawrence, who dispatches the ball brilliantly into the corner of the net. And then it was close but no cigar for Eberici Eze, who missed by a whisker in the 77th minute, and while a goal there may have helped turn the tides, it's the Eagles who sink out of the Carabao Cup at the final whistle. With the season reaching its halfway point, the boys find themselves out of the basement, but they're sitting precariously at the top step. And despite winning some off-camera games, an injury to Jean-Philippe Mateta has Palace manager Mr. Basement searching for answers ahead of their 4th-round FA Cup tie against global icon Cristiano Ronaldo and his backups, Manchester United. Though the FA Cup may be the oldest club competition in the world, it's 18-year-old loanee Brad Young who stole the show. His near-perfect pass may not have resulted in an assist, but it certainly had a hand in Oxlade-Chamberlain's 11th-minute opener. Then, a moment of brilliance. Young collects a flicked-on header from Hudson-Odoi and wriggles free of Lindelof before unleashing a wonder strike into the top corner, his first for the club since joining on loan from Aston Villa. The rising star continued to impress with his range of passing, nearly assisting again, but Bertrand Traore dragged the close-range effort wide. He would provide once again, choosing to trust his gut and lay off for an on-rushing Traore. This time, the Burkina Faso winger put his foot through the ball and smashed home for a 3-0 lead. United did snatch one back, a slick reverse ball from Ronaldo sees Fred smash home, but it was all for naught as Brad Young's killer pass found Hudson-Odoi right from kickoff, restoring the Eagles' 3-goal cushion, Edouard racing to the camera to rub it in the face of the United support at home. He had finished 4-1 thanks to an incredible introduction from a fabulous young player. With the January window closing quickly, Mr. Basement decided that reinforcements were necessary. First, he welcomed Pavel Davidovich from Hellas Verona for £6 million. The 26-year-old center back will bring some much-needed competition to the team's ranks, with Cheick Kouyaté playing his way out of contention. And things certainly didn't cool off as the boss offers another warm welcome to Jurgen Klopp and sees the two strike another loan deal, this time for Takumi Minamino, who he hopes can bring some added firepower up front in the face of a few injuries. But perhaps the shrewdest bit of business comes next. The Palace manager was impressed by Brad Young's FA Cup heroics and secured him on a permanent basis for £2.25 million, just months after joining the team on loan. The Rising Star forward signed on for 5 years at £10,000 per week wages, but it wasn't all new faces for the team. We secured new contract extensions for Jaroslav Yak, who's impressed since the new manager's arrival, and Nathaniel Klein, with the veteran signing on for 2 additional seasons. Now, with the winter window shut, it was time to shift focus back to the Premier League. A match against Burnley was on the cards, and Mr. Basement did his best to reassure the fans that his side was in fine form. The game against Burnley would be crucial to the Eagles' success. With the Clarets sitting just 2 points ahead in 11th position, it was a chance for Palace to sneak into the top half of the table. And things started in a flash. Bertrand Traoré went on a run through the middle of the park in the 18th minute, and freed up acres of space for Odsonne-Edouard, who hammered home the opening goal of the game. And despite some warning shots from the away side, Palace would hold firm, and the stout defending would pay off in the 55th minute when Thrilling Wilfie picked up the ball just outside the 18-yard box, put his defender through a spin cycle, and scored before celebrating with the Palace faithful. And despite a few more chances late in the game, including this near volley from new boy Takumi Minamino, it would end 2-0. A brilliant start to the second half of the league year, but with an FA Cup quarterfinal on the horizon, consistency would prove to be key. We take a drive down the M23 to face off against rivals Brighton in our second quarterfinal of the season. All eyes were on Brad Young. Following his stunning display against Manchester United, he was the top goalscorer in the competition ahead of kickoff. But the tie would start horrifically, as Palace go down 3-0 thanks to goals from Elzate, Mwepu, and Solly Marsh, who all scored before the half-hour mark. And the Eagles would find it hard to get a foothold in the game, with 2 more goals on the other side of half-time from Alexis McAllister and Puertas helping show the boys the door. It was an embarrassing cup exit to say the least, but with all of the focus now back on Premier League standings, the boys sit 12th with just 8 games to go and a few crucial fixtures ahead of them. It was tough sledding for the Basement boys as they battled Leicester City following the cup exit. The game was nothing more than a formality, though. Yuri Tielemans would be the star in his own show as the midfielder exposed our fragile defensive line and bagged 2 goals in the first half. And although Wilfried Zaha would find his name on the score sheet in the 68th minute, Tielemans completed his hat-trick and wrapped up proceedings at the King Power Stadium as Palace fell 3-1. But following that defeat was a trip to Goodison, where team and fan alike were hoping for better results. And the two sides would exchange pleasantries in the form of goals, Everton scoring first, but Eberechi Eze would follow up with an awesome strike from distance and gave new life to the traveling support. The two sides would continue sharing body blows until Dominic Calvert-Lewin popped up in the box to restore Everton's lead, and then a 20-yard strike from Julien Labat put the game out of sight for the Eagles, falling 3-1 for the second time in as many games. With the final home game of the season coming up, Mr. Basement was all smiles in the media as the Eagles were guaranteed a mid-table finish. But the game against Villa could still prove to be valuable. A win would see Palace leapfrog a few teams in the top half of the table, depending on results elsewhere. The Eagles would get off to a flying start, as Odsonne-Edouard's mazy run sets up the young bull who barely nicks the ball off the boot of Callum Chambers, giving the boys the early spark that they were looking for. Ox would then double his tally just 7 minutes later, combining again with Edouard, who left this chance on a silver platter for the impressive midfielder to tuck away. Edouard played provider yet again, dropping the ball into a pocket of space for Thrilling Wilfie, who unleashed a cannon from the edge of the box, giving Mr. Basement the perfect end-of-season gift, 3 points. But the result wasn't enough at the end of the year, as a loss to Manchester United on the final day of the season cemented 12th place in our debut campaign. Not terrible, but certainly not great. With the league season wrapped up, it was time for awards, and Eberechi Eze took home the Iron Man Award, appearing in a team-high 39 games as the young winger added 6 goals and 3 assists throughout the season. Thrilling Wilfie took home Golden Boot honors with 15 goals, 13 of those coming in the league, alongside 7 assists. But the top assister goes to Odsonne-Edouard, who provided on 11 different occasions and added 13 goals to match. The signing of the season goes to the young bull, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who scored 10 times and assisted 5 in his debut campaign with the Eagles, and that should almost certainly see his loan clause reactivated for next year. The young player of the season, of course, goes to Brad Young. He scored 3 times and assisted 4 in all competitions, and his future impact to the team is almost unquestionable. And with that, the season is officially over. Thank you all for taking this journey with me here in episode 1. Really appreciate everyone who made it to the end of the video. We'll be starting production on episode 2 soon, so leave a comment down below with transfer ideas for Mr. Basement and the boys. And as always, subscribe for more as the quest for European glory rages on.